US President Donald Trump signs a new 10% tariff on imports worldwide. Just hours after the US Supreme Court struck down his earlier sweeping duties, he says the adjustment process begins now and he will raise even more revenue. US Vice President J.D. Vance says the Supreme Court wrongly claimed the intent of Congress and did not truly give the president authority to regulate imports. He calls the ruling lawless and warns it makes it harder to protect American industries. After the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Donald Trump's tariffs, Canada called the levies unjustified, while the European Union began reviewing the judgment. Mexico and the United Kingdom say they will study the ruling and coordinate next steps with Washington. US President Donald Trump will visit China from March 31st to April 2nd for talks with his counterpart Xi Jinping. The trip comes after the Supreme Court struck down several of Trump's China-focused tariffs. The U.S. military struck an alleged drug smuggling boat in the Eastern Pacific, killing 3 men in its second strike this week. U.S. Southern Command says intelligence tracked the vessel along known trafficking routes before launching the attack. US President Donald Trump says he's considering a limited military strike on Iran to push its leaders towards a nuclear deal within 10 days. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi held calls with Egypt and Russia over ongoing indirect talks with Washington. According to reports, Israeli strikes in Lebanon kill at least 10 people, including a senior Hezbollah official. The military targeted Hezbollah sites in Baalbek and a Hamas command center near Ain al-Hilweh refugee camp. UK police are contacting former and current officers who worked closely with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in a protection role. They say no new sexual offense allegations have been made and are reviewing the Epstein files. Now for this hour, we start with U.S. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has demanded nearly $9 billion in tariff refunds from U.S. President Donald Trump after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled his tariffs were illegal. Pritzker has urged the White House to cut the check, arguing the tariffs hurt farmers, increased grocery prices, and caused widespread economic damage. California Governor Gavin Newsom has joined in, calling the tariffs an illegal cash grab and demanding immediate refunds with interest. While the tariffs raised over $130 billion, it remains unclear who will receive compensation. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has casted doubt on direct payouts, and Justice Kavanaugh has warned that the government still needs to figure out how to return the funds. Now, we are welcoming Dr. Asta Chada. She's Associate Professor of International Relations, joins us live from Kyoto, Japan. Thank you very much, Dr. Chada, for joining us again. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Now, looking at this, as there's a lot of uncertainties over here regarding Trump's legality on this issue, and he has, on top of that, he has added 10% more. However, of course, Democrats have seen this as a chance, right? How do you think this will unfold between Democrats and Republicans?
Okay, so we need to kind of bifurcate this issue into 3 different aspects of what happened as a result of this ruling. So what has been ruled completely against the Trump administration is the fact that they evoked an emergency economic powers act in order to apply these tariffs or strike countries down, which including rivals and strategic partners with tariffs or reciprocal tariffs, imposing on them certain rules and then trying to negotiate deals for the US. That has been found to be unfair, and those tariffs currently stand suspended. The second aspect of this ruling is that from the opposite side, which is several Democratic-led states and their leadership, they are demanding refunds. The problem here is, can they demand refunds? I mean, politically, as a rhetoric, sure, they can do it. But the truth is that even the court does not provide any details on how exactly these refunds, or what is going to be the kind of mechanism to allow for these refunds to reach out to the impacted or the affected people or the affected organizations or the corporates. There is no clarity on that, right? And even if it were to become a reality, it's going to stretch into years. That's what they said. It's going to be a long drawn process. So even though, yes, it is a win for the opposition that had consistently criticized the imposition of tariffs at whatever random rates under the current administration, there is no clarity on whether or not there would be a payout, whether or not there would be compensation of any kind. And the third thing that you raised, which is again very important, is this new 10% global tariff. Now, we must understand that the new 10% global tariff has been raised under a very different section, a very different law. Unlike the previous ones that have been struck down by the court, which were under the IEEPA, which President Trump's administration tried to by evoking emergency powers, this one actually does allow the president to impose temporary import surcharges of close to 15% for 150 days. And the current administration under President Trump wants to use this as a measure in some way to in their words, make sure that there is no unfair trade, make sure they can investigate any impacts on national security and economic security of the United States. And so 150 days is a window under which they are imposing a global flat rate of 10%. That brings us to the question, are they valid? Well, the 10% are valid within that 150 days window. Does that mean something good for the countries? Because now they don't have to pay an 18% or a 20% or a 50% tariff. I mean, on paper, yes. But overall, on the global supply chain, it still maintains some kind of uncertainty, because let's not forget, we are talking about 150 days. We are talking about potential investigations that the US government is going to do to check unfair trade practices from their perspective, which means that there still remains a lot of volatility in the system.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Dr. Chadha, for that analysis. Please stay with us as we stay on this. Now, President Trump has slammed the U.S. Supreme Court justices who dealt him one of the biggest defeats of his second term by striking down his administration's global tariffs. Describing the ruling as deeply disappointing, Trump has accused the justices of lacking the courage to do the right thing and called them absolutely ashamed. During a White House press conference, Trump has launched a sweeping attack on both liberal and conservative members of the court, expressing his belief that the decision was influenced by foreign interests, though he provided no evidence. The ruling, which declared that presidents do not have inherent authority to impose tariffs without congressional approval, was a blow to President Trump's trade agenda. Despite the setback, he has vowed to continue imposing tariffs through other methods. Trump even questioned his own Supreme Court appointees, Justices Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, calling their votes an embarrassment and taking aim at their families. His fiery comments underscores his deep dissatisfaction with the decision and the court's independence. Let's listen into what the U.S. president has shared.
Well, thank you very much for being here. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. That I can assure you.
Now we welcome back Dr. Asta Chadha. She's joining us live from Japan. Thank you very much, Dr. Chadha, for staying with us. Now, yesterday when I first heard this news, right, I was like, oh my God, what is he going to do? Maybe he'll roll back some tariffs. He's going to change his stance, but I was proven wrong. What was your initial take? And, also given that tariffs were a central pillar of Trump's economic and political identity, how would this decision reshape his messaging and strategy moving forward, if it can, or do you think that he would?
Right. I mean, this does come in some way as a surprise, given that his own appointees, two of them, have had actually joined in the 6-3 vote, which basically means that his tariffs are in some way not legalized anymore. They don't fall within the purview of the powers that president can wield. Another good thing out of this is that there is some more clarity in the United States, at least whether it's among the conservatives or the Democrats, with regard to when and to what extent can the president overstep their boundaries, to take on roles or take on powers that have been allotted or allocated to the Congress versus to the president. And this particular ruling in some way draws that line very well. With regard to this being a central pillar, I mean, I agree with your reading here. This was and had been for a very long time part of his overall rhetoric on making America great again and centralizing America first in his foreign policy, which meant levying tariffs in one way and bringing better deals for the United States. But should we look at it as a win for the opposition and a loss for President Trump? I think more than economics, this administration will probably have to pay more in terms of loss of political legitimacy. A lot of the loss of the fact that many of the supporters of this government would be losing trust in the capability of the administration to maintain some sort of long-term stability, whether it's political stability or it's even economic stability. Now, what does that mean for any future tariffs? I mean, like I was just mentioning earlier, the new law, or the other law, not the new law, I should correct myself, the other law, the Trade Act of 1974, which has now been evoked, that explicitly does allow the president to impose temporary import surcharges. What needs to be monitored here is that this new 10% global tariff, which direction will it take? I mean, is it going to be used in some way purely as a bridge measure to make sure that the amount of tariffs, or the amount of tariffs that were levied and the amount of revenue that was supposed to be generated doesn't immediately fall to zero? So these new 10% global tariffs would in some way help stabilize that balance of payment deficit in the short run, which is a 150 days window. Or are these new 10% global tariffs going to be utilized or instrumentalized yet again as a measure for this government or this administration to punish a lot of other powers who apparently have been dancing in the streets, enjoying this current ruling? But again, I mean, at the end of the day, this was very much, I mean, in terms of the judgment, I think there was no doubt that probably this judgment would have come at some point, if not sooner than later. Because clearly the way US had been using or instrumentalizing this whole tariff war seemed not just destabilizing internally for United States, but also for the global supply chains. It was a very, very bad news. And the fact that now this ruling has come about, it in a way does assure US trading partners, at least I wouldn't say allies or rivals, I would just say trading partners, with the fact that US institutions are still strong, they still can make decisions, and this whole administration is not in a way empowered enough to overtake all of these institutions. But it still does not answer the question, what is to come next? It remains still too unpredictable and too volatile.
100%. Indeed, a lot of things are still under the wraps, but thank you for sharing that analysis with us, Dr. Chadha. Thank you. Now we move on to India. Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has met with Brazilian President Lula da Silva during his state visit to India, expressing his appreciation for the president's warm sentiments and valuable guidance on enhancing the strategic partnership between the two nations. Dr. S. Jaishankar has highlighted the importance of Lula's visit and expressed confidence that the upcoming meetings between President Lula and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi would provide a significant boost to bilateral relations, imparting fresh momentum to the growing ties between India and Brazil. Now we move on to U.S. in a surprising turn. During Les Wexner's deposition in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, the former Victoria's Secret mogul's lawyer was caught on hot mic, threatening to kill Wexner if he continued with long-winded answers. The remark came during Wexner's testimony before the House Oversight Committee as part of its ongoing probe into Epstein's criminal network. Wexner, who has long been linked to Epstein, denied any personal involvement in the financiers' crimes, claiming he had severed ties with him in 2007 after discovering Epstein's financial misdeeds. Despite his previous claims of innocence, Wexner's lawyer's ill-timed comment added a strange moment of levity to the otherwise tense proceedings. The committee had released the full deposition to ensure transparency in the ongoing investigation into Epstein's activities and his associations with prominent figures, including Wexner. Wexner's testimony also touched on his business dealings, his former ties with Epstein, and the controversial relationship between Epstein and U.S. President Donald Trump. Now for this, we welcome retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. She's a Defense and International Relations Analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, it seems like it's a warning to me. Do you think this is normal for a lawyer to threaten his client like this, especially someone so big or elite like this in a hot mic?
Good morning, Asuma. So good to
Thank
see you.
you.
See, when we are dealing with people like Epstein, so anything, every word is a landmine. So when we talk about this Jeffrey Epstein scandal, we are not merely revisiting a criminal case. We are confronting a systematic failure of power, influence, and accountability. And when his lawyer says something like this, it's not just a flippant remark, because he may be saying it very jokingly out of desperation, because he has been giving very long answers. But see, let's understand, it underscores a very, very sensitive and extremely, delicate surrounding in the case, where high-profile billionaires whose financials and personal relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, they are under scrutiny. They appear defensive or overly managed during depositions. So this reinforced public suspicion. So see, let's remember that Lex Wexner was once Epstein's prominent ally, and Epstein has sweeping power of attorney over his finances. So that relationship is not peripheral, and this is central to the understanding that how Epstein embedded himself into the elite circles. So when we understand that, the lawyer is saying that do not give long answers, or, you are just annoying. So these are very dangerous for the legal team trying to keep a lid on decade-long association. This shows the pressure these people are in, because when they are on off camera, they try, they inadvertently drop the mask. And this reveals that how much stage management is still being done, despite so much of facts coming out. And record shows that, it is not just about association, it is about overlapping social circles. But as of now, see, no substantial evidence of criminal wrongdoing has come out. But still this association is very, very thick. And there are, broader repercussions of this, because every deposition, every leaked mic moment reinforces the perception that powerful operate with insulated legal system. See, we know social media moves faster than judicial proceedings. So every evidence in court may need a higher threshold, but a public discourse is much lower. So these are not about individual guilt. They are there to expose, how the transnational elites, financiers, royalties, politicians, celebrities, they share a special space. And there are deeper questions about vetting and moral blind spots, and these are actually covered by silence. So when such things come out, I think every failure, every moment like this, it shows us that the association has to be scrutinized. And in intelligence and geopolitical surroundings, we must know that we undergo something known as network mapping. So in public domain, if you are trying to cover something like this, then every association becomes very, very suspicious. So we have to see that, such dropped mic moments are more, so that people get to know that how much they're trying to cover it up.
Yes.
Asuma.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this. Now, newly released documents from the U.S. Department of Justice have shocked the internet, with the name of pop icon late Michael Jackson appearing in connection with late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. While this has sparked speculation online, investigators have found no evidence linking Jackson to Epstein's criminal activities. The documents include photos, contacts, and records showing Jackson's name in Epstein's address book, but there's no proof of illegal activity. A viral email mentioning Jackson in 2013 is being interpreted as a mistake, with no new evidence emerging. There's a photo of Jackson with Epstein, but it has been reported that their meeting was extremely short and completely professional. Apart from that, the singer appears in passing in the Epstein files with no direct mention. One Michael Jackson that does appear numerous times in the Epstein files appears to be someone related to interior decoration who was working on his kitchen. Jackson passed away in 2009, years before Epstein's activities became public. He had never spoken publicly about Epstein as well, as per reports. Now we welcome back retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel, for staying with us. Now, of course, not every name which appears means that it or they were involved in, Epstein's illegal activities, of course, including towards children and minors and girls and women. So, now that it's very kind of clarified or cleared that Michael Jackson wasn't involved in such, but still, of course, this will issue conspiracy theories and all that. How do you think, how should media represent these kind of news so that we balance out, and while we is telling the truth?
Asuma, media tries to sensationalize everything that is given to them. And we know Michael Jackson has always been surrounded by mystery, even when he was alive and even when he died. Later on also, there were many conspiracy theories were coming out. So the mention of Michael Jackson in Epstein files serves as a cautionary tale, of viral versus reality. So while his name appears in the logs, photographs, it highlights the difference between contact and culpability. So when police is trying to vet the logs and other documents, let's understand that there is a paper trail or photographs which are mentioning about Jackson, but there is not necessarily that he has participated in some sort of crime, because the narrative which goes viral is something people like to listen, and that is something that is being done here, that linking Michael Jackson to Epstein. But the fact of the matter is that record may show the paper trail, contact listings, photographs, possibly overlapping the social circuits also, because sometimes you go in a party and you just get to meet a person, you click some pictures. But since the so much of murk has flown all around, there's so much of crisis which is happening around Epstein files, that any name which is coming out gets under scrutiny. So even if there is no substantial evidence of criminal wrongdoing tied to Michael Jackson in this connection, however, since high-profile scandals, they involve figures like Epstein, even association becomes weaponized. So social proximity gets conflated with complicity, and digital virality amplifies the information, incomplete information. So once a name that trends globally, reputation damage are irreversible. So even if evidences are thin, the damage is already done. Asuma.
Yes, indeed, we will be like that. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel, for sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to UK. British police are now contacting the former and serving royal protection officers who may have information about former Prince Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the former prince, following his arrest. The arrest comes amid scrutiny over his ties with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Meanwhile, Thames Valley Police has searched a mansion recently occupied by Mountbatten-Windsor in the Windsor estate in connection with allegations that he may have shared confidential government information while serving as a British trade envoy. The former prince, who's 66 years old, was questioned after over accusations of misconduct in public office, which carries a maximum life sentence if proven. The Metropolitan Police said officers are being asked whether anything they saw or heard while providing protection to Mountbatten Windsor is relevant to ongoing reviews. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has not been charged as of now and denies wrongdoing. Now we welcome back retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshu Singh. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel, for staying with us. Now, if these allegations of misconduct in public office is pursued, what could this mean for the boundaries between royal duties and government responsibilities? And could it prompt reforms on how members of the royal families are appointed to official roles, and what will be the implications then?
See, we have seen Prince Andrew already facing reputational collapse following the civil litigation that was filed earlier against him by Virginia. So he has been denying the wrongdoings, and he had reached a settlement without any admission of liability, and public damage was profound. So now when, law enforcement inquiry has renewed this case, criminal case against him, so there are important things that investigators are trying to corroborate the movements of access logs, travel records, and security and platforms. Because the high-level environment, especially involving royalty, there are logs which are maintained by officers, and these officers are bound by Official Secrets Act. So they may not say anything, but once the documents come out and they are there for evidence, the public reputation of Andrew and his wrongdoings will also come out. And if we see the broader perspective here, see, the royal monarchy, it rests on moral authority, and somewhere people try and look them up in very high esteem. So once we know that his association with Epstein was not just social. They intersect at a junction where business and international engagement were done. So this is a diplomatic implication, and public has already, witnessed royal restructuring. People are trying to find out that these are somewhere transparent, and actually the legal things are come out because see, the entry-exit points where officers were maintaining logs. So these things can substantiate, even if Andrew doesn't like to cooperate or cooperates very little with the law-abiding authorities. And somewhere, it's not about individual guilt. It is all about institutions where the digital evidence speaks much more than what people are speaking. It will definitely have implications, not just inside the UK, but internationally in geopolitics also. Once things are unearthed, it will have a lot of implications, Asuma, which is not going to be good for the current demographical environment in the world.
Yes, indeed. And do you think this, the arrest that we saw yesterday or day before, does this signal a shift in how British institutions approach accountability for royals?
Definitely, they are trying to make monarchs more accountable, because ultimately it is the public money on which such institutions are rested. So if people in authority, in the helm of affairs, they are doing wrong things, then somewhere public trust shifts. And investigators, they believe that this kind of scrutiny is very essential, because people hold chairs where they are influencing the diplomatic ties, the geopolitical association, the security, and everything. So everything from a friend to associate has to be scrutinized, because as I earlier said, the officials may not come out with things unless probed. They are bound by Official Secrets Act, and there are secret non-disclosure agreements. But Andrew has taken undue advantage of these things. He was bringing girls to the royal palaces, and somewhere, as we have seen his pictures with the girls, the way they are so bad that you cannot talk about it. So reputation of monarchy is already under threat. So these institutions, they rely on public trust, and I think documentary evidences will bring out the weight and the kind of wrongdoings which he had done. So definitely he has to face the law, and as I'm saying, monarchy will go for a downfall because of people like Andrew who have misused the chair they sat once in.
100%, we will be behind that. Thank you for highlighting that and joining us and sharing that throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to US. US President Donald Trump met with Vietnamese leader To Lam and said that he would work to remove Hanoi from list of countries restricted in accessing US advanced technology. The first formal in-person meeting between the two took place at the White House after the head of Vietnam's ruling Communist Party leader To Lam attended the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace in Washington. The meeting followed the announcement of deals worth over $30 billion, under which Vietnamese airlines would buy 90 aircraft from U.S. plane maker Boeing. President Trump has announced an immediate new 10% tariff on most imports from all countries after the Supreme Court struck down some of his earlier sweeping tariffs. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.